Did you know billionaires don't read books the same way most people do? Actually, they don't consume any type of content like we do, and let me tell you this, you'd be amazed at how little information they had when they got started. So what made them so successful? Well, it all boils down to a sneaky mental skill they use to learn and retain knowledge like no one else. Literally, the richest man in the world uses this skill to learn. And the best part is this skill is accessible to anyone, totally free, for anyone to use at any given moment. The skill is called Meta-Cognition, and it's free because it's just a process of thinking. Now, Elon Musk uses a form of metacognition which is called first principles thinking, which is basically metacognition applied to problem solving. So today, I'm going to show you my 3-step framework that I use not just to solve problems, but to learn everything ultra fast. So let's dive in. First step, picking and validating sources. Before diving into the real nitty-gritty concepts of what metacognition is and how to apply it, we first need to understand that in order to apply a method that allows us to learn ultra fast, we need to be very careful about the sources that we're going to pick to learn from. So we need to cover super fast the ways that I use to personally verify and validate the sources in which I'm going to learn from to make sure I'm going to apply ultra fast learning techniques into the correct source. There's no sense in applying these powerful techniques into content that really sucks and is not going to get you anywhere. Picking the sources, a real challenge nowadays because everyone can be a content creator online, including me. You should judge me in terms of what I'm going to tell you right now. You should validate if they are capable of guiding you towards something that you want to achieve. So on how to validating a source, the first problem you have is a conflict of interest. So people trying to teach you and in reality selling you something. So this is the first red flag you should take into account when you're considering whether to trust someone or not. So for example, if I see an affiliate link or something they're trying to sell me, a course or whatever, I'm just like extra careful and my alarms go off. So one of my favorite ways of learning is books. Books are really great because normally there's nothing they want to sell you inside here because you already just bought. And I know authors put a lot of time creating this type of content, so it's really hard for them after investing so much time and effort that they still want to kind of persuade you into a wrong path or just trying to sell you something more than they want to teach you what they wrote about. And also how to validate the authors of social media content or whatever, like YouTube videos, which is, have they done what they're talking about? If you're going to see a video on e-commerce and you're saying I'm talking about e-commerce, then you should see, is there something you can learn from me? Am I in a different level or category in which you want to achieve? If that's a yes, then that's how you validate the author, if they have done what they're talking about, basically. So how to validate author books? I use 2 websites. One is called Goodreads, which is basically book reviews, and then another website I use not just to see reviews of books and validate the author, but to find books that I want to read. It's called goodbooks.io. This website allows you to see the recommended books by famous personalities. So you can see, for example, the books recommended by Elon Musk on this website. Okay, so now that we know how to find good content and how to validate the sources, we need to dive into metacognition, which is the actual part where the learning happens, because now we need to apply metacognition on top of that content so we make sure it sticks. Let's dive into why metacognition is the only way to learn effectively. And the main reason is the old way of learning, built on top of a false model which is called transmissionism, assumes just because I'm reading something on a piece of paper on a computer, I just understand it. That's the idea of basically all learning institutions. Read something and therefore you understand it. And this is wrong. And this is why the article of Andy Matuschak is so good, because it will tell you why you're wasting your time if you're just reading books and that's it. So I want you to ask yourself a question now, which is, tell me at least 5 things you remember from the last book you read. And if you're struggling to remember 5 key concepts of the latest book you read, it's because I think me and you agree on something, which is transmissionism is a bad learning model. Now that we agreed that transmissionism is a bad learning model, then let's dive into what metacognition is and why it's going to help you learn ultra fast and actually retain the concepts that you're learning and making the time investment and the effort investment of you reading into a truly effective investment and not just something that will go away in literally a day or 2 that you already forgotten what you read. So metacognition, to summarize it, is the process of thinking and reflection that comes after consuming the content or while you're consuming the content. It is basically like the backstage crew of a huge theater show. You might see the show and you think that's it, but there's a lot behind the show that is making that show possible. So imagine the show is learning. Without metacognition, which is the backstage crew, it wouldn't be possible. Think it of as an essential part of learning that is not really visible or tangible. Most people, when they're trying to learn, they're forgetting the metacognition part, which is hidden but essential at the same time. Metacognition is the thinking that happens when you start asking yourself, how does this content I just read relates to something that I already know or something where I want to apply this knowledge? That reflection process is basically the essence of metacognition, which you need to remember and you need to apply every time you consume the content, which is an effort requiring skills. It's not a lazy reading where you just, think, oh, this is something that relates to X, Y, Z. No, it's actual thinking. There's a lot of effort involved in thinking how that relates to contents that you already know or things that you want to apply the content you're consuming. Okay, so these are the key ways of applying metacognition in learning. So after you're identifying the content you want to consume and you start consuming the content, the important step for you on the metacognition process is to actually take the notes. So the way that I'm doing this is I'm reading and I'm highlighting the important parts that I want to keep on my zettelkasten. Zettelkasten is a way of organizing the notes that I'm taking, but for the metacognition process, it's not necessary. Everything I read, I'm thinking, how would this fit into my zettelkasten? So once I finish the highlighting, after however long you want to read for, what I will do is I will go back to the book and I'll see, let's say I've read this couple of pages and I'll see which of these are the ones that I want to keep. From here, what I will do is I'll basically use pen and paper to write my conclusions from this. Here, the important thing is that you're not copying this, is that you're writing your own thoughts. Gets you thinking. Thinking is what needs to go on the note. And how will you organize the note is where zettelkasten comes in. Zettelkasten, which was coined by Niklas Luhmann, a German sociologist that created, I think, like 70 books, something ridiculous, like a total academic beast. This guy, thanks to the zettelkasten method, which he invented, so he used to store the notes in like physical compartments. He had like a huge archive of all the notes and all the references of the notes that he'd been taking for years, and then he kept them in different like slip boxes. Zettelkasten is a method or the framework. The software, it can be anything. I'm using Obsidian myself to work on my zettelkasten. I'm not going to cover how to make it, but I'm just going to show you how these notes look like and how they interconnect things. Okay, so now basically what we need to do is transcribe our physical notes into the Obsidian. That's basically taking our physical notes and elaboration of thoughts into the zettelkasten. So this is how it looks like, specifically for this article, which is the harnessing the science of persuasion. And basically this is my notes, and this is the power of this. Like, you can actually connect these notes to other books or content that you read, which is like a fundamental part of practicing metacognition, which is the connection of different thoughts. So this reminds me of a book which is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. So I could basically connect it to that thought, and then you see everything that this connects to. So for example, Harvard Business Review at 100, which is basically the book itself and the page where I've taken it from, how this connects with the rest of the notes in this Obsidian. So this note, you can see how this connects to different things, like different notes or different thoughts as well. Also, this is a cool animation. So this is like a clear example of how the zettelkasten works. Like, you're taking notes and then you're finding relationships, and this is why it's so easy to practice metacognition in the zettelkasten, because it's a perfect system to find relationships between the notes that you've taken already. So that's a real example of how I was taking notes and how I was connecting different notes. Apparently it had nothing to do, but in the end they had like meaningful connections. So you can see here how the zettelkasten starts looking like a proper brain, and you can see how the clusters start to form around like different topics. And the good thing about a zettelkasten is that it's a system that, in my opinion, most resembles the actual brain process of like interconnecting things, because most note-taking methods will get you separating in folders. And what I like about this zettelkasten method is that everything lives in one place, which I think what most likely looks like the brain, right? Everything is in one place, and you could easily connect, or one idea about fitness or anything, the most random thing, could be connected to a business idea. I like to allow this to happen, and that's why I've chosen zettelkasten for my note storage method or note taking method, so I can allow these spontaneous thoughts to occur. So just to give a brief intro of what a zettelkasten is, it's divided on fleeting notes, literature notes or indexes, and permanent notes. Fleeting notes are just spontaneous thoughts that can occur at any time. I have, for example, on my iPhone, a little note called brain dump, which is my fleeting note. After, when I have time, I'll review the fleeting note, and then I'll see, okay, I can transform this into a permanent note. And literature notes or indexes are ways to organize content or having like a reference system. It's like having a personal database for your mind of the thoughts. And the good thing is all of these different thoughts interconnect with each other. You can research more on the zettelkasten and start using it. Normal notes is fine, like Apple Notes or like pen and paper, everything is fine. As long as you're practicing this process of metacognition, you're going to remember so much more. So this is a perfect place to get started with the metacognition. So I don't want this video for you to go to waste, and the time that you invest in watching this to go to waste. After I finish giving you the instruction, you can put pause and then just do it, which is write about what you just heard and what you understood from this. You're not a parrot. You don't need to repeat what I'm saying here. You just need to write what you thought of this. It doesn't matter if it's good, just do it. If you do it today with this video, think about it in 1 month and you remember exactly what you wrote today. If you want, put a calendar appointment in 1 month's time and make sure you practice in metacognition note taking today. And in 1 month, try to recall what you took notes from today. I promise you, you'll be amazed as you remember. It's not that you had a bad memory, it's just that you never used proper methods for real learning and comprehension. So let's recap the whole video. Picking and validating sources. First step, super important. And I recommend you find a source that you can trust as well. Second part, which is metacognition. You understand now that in order to understand what you just consumed, you need to think about it. Third step, which is organizing and remembering. For this, I use the zettelkasten method. You can use Apple Notes, you can use a pen and paper, you can use whatever you want. If you want to use a napkin, that's fine. Just make sure you're keeping those notes in a place that you can recall and you can go for after. I recommend zettelkasten method, but you can use whatever you want. And if you want to start a business, but you're just lost into what skills to start developing yourself to make yourself a beast of an entrepreneur, go check out my latest video in where I rank 9 skills into the most important and the least important ones. If you want to be an absolute savage entrepreneur, go check it out now.